And welcome back to the channel, guys. Just a quick intro just before we get into today's tournament video. So I just did make a couple of upgrades to the storage room here. I figured I'd kind of show this off. So I had questions about the new Heels and Faces figures, right? So I decided to finally start using this spare wall space. So as of right now, I got about 8 more Heels and Faces figures I could probably put up. But once that's done, man, I'm done. I don't know if I'm going to collect Heels and Faces anymore. And all of those additional LJN customs, I pulled those out, so I'm no longer storing them in that area. But it's kind of a hot mess right now because, as you can see, they're all like double stacked over here. And you can't even see a lot of these figures anymore. But I have such a massive amount of freaking figures. Like, I used to have all of these Hogans front and center, right? And then all the Roddy Pipers were front and center. All the Brutus Beefcakes were front and center. $1 Million Man's front and center, so forth. But there's just way too many. There aren't too many awesome figures out there. Even when you get to like all of the Ram Treasure figures, right? They're all stacking up there. So I'm really running out of space. And when you look at this wall, when I first started setting them up like this, I mean, this is exactly what I wanted. I wanted them side by side, just like this, but they're going to have to start being staggered like so, because there's this, and I want to keep them like this. I want to keep them together. When I started putting some of the extras over here, that's not what I wanted, but it was kind of necessary. So yeah, that one area with the brown shelf. Right now, the goal is to kind of... I've got in contact with David Garland, and I am going to buy a couple, or I have purchased a couple dozen new AWA Repco stands. So, we're not going to go with the AWA Remco or AWA logo. So, I bought the same exact stands like I have for the Remco figures up front. But in this back area, I am going to start using the bell-to-bell figures that you get from damn, what's it called? Drawing a blank. Shoot. I can't remember what it's freaking called. Oh my god, I can't remember the name. Ringside Collectibles. Oh my god. It was like Ringside Collectibles. Wow, that's embarrassing. So the bell-to-bell figures from Ringside Collectibles, which it does give you your Remco style figures. I am going to start putting... I have been buying duplicates of those, of course, and opening up those packages. So I am going to start putting those figures, the loose figures, displayed on that little DVD shelf, and those new AWA Remco stands. So the logos are going to read WCW, because so far Big Papa Pump and Scott Steiner and the two variants of the Steiner Brother tag teams and Legion of Doom, I mean, they're all Steiner Brothers, right? Danhausen, I don't know anything about Danhausen. I'm assuming he's strictly a WWF character. But, like I said, I don't know. I think I mentioned to David that I wanted to kind of split it up. 12 WWF logos, 12 WCW. But if he ends up doing just straight WCW, oh well, not a big deal. I mean, hell, even if he just gave me straight AWA logos, I'm perfectly fine with that. I mean, it doesn't have to be changed. But I just figured it'd be nice to kind of change it to something different, right? So, that is the That is going to be one of the little changes I've made to that particular room. There are a lot of things I would like to add as far as display purposes to the main focal point of this room, so that when I actually do these videos, I kind of have them set in the background. Obviously, I am never going to film in that storage room. The only time you guys are ever going to see anything in that room is if I do like a room tour and I'm kind of showing you guys what I have in that particular room. But anyways, today's video, we are obviously on the tournament, and we are on round 2, part 12, and we are going to dive straight in to today's matchups. First matchup is going to feature Jim Neidhart blue, and he is going to square off against the Wrestlingwriter Bulldog. Next matchup is going to feature Macho Man from Wrestlingwriter, and he does battle against Hawk Red. See, I really should have done a better job kind of verifying, like, is it the Random Treasures Hawk or is it the main custom Hawk? But I am assuming that that's the Random Treasures Hawk. This is Coco White and Gold, as he will do battle against Outback Jack. In fact, I think this is the third straight video we've had a Coco Beware figure. Awesome. Black Honky Tonk Man. And he will square off against Andre #1 from Mark Hackenberg. That's a good match. That is a good one. I believe it's that Andre the Giant, and yeah, that's the one. That's a tough one. So, Black Honky Tonk Man, just kind of reference. So I have a Black Honky Tonk Man, a black and gold from Raider Nation, and I guess I had chosen the... I think when I pulled Black Honky Tonk Man originally, I pulled the Raider Nation figure, which was incorrect. There was another custom with Black Honky Tonk Man. So later on in the first round, when I took the Black Honky Tonk Man from Raider Nation, I pulled the wrong one. So this one actually is the Raider Nation version that I'm going to be pulling. All right, so let's go ahead and get these pulled, and we will begin in a second. Alright, first matchup is going to feature from Wrestlingwriter, his version of the British Bulldog, as he squares off against Jim Neidhart. And actually from Wrestlingwriter, there is a variant that I got from him that I requisitioned from him that does have a black line down. So I actually do have multiple variants of this particular version of Jim Neidhart. But we're going to start with his British Bulldog figure. And this is one of those figures that I've always coveted. It was at one point probably one of the more top tier figures from Eric that I've acquired. Now, over the last year or so, it's a figure that I probably I don't want to say don't respect. I don't have as much love for as much as I did when I first acquired it. At one point, yeah, it was a top tier figure. Now, whether it's something that, because with the vast quantity of figures that I've acquired over the last few years, that it has just fallen so far down my list of favorites, bundled with the fact that, yeah, over time it has started to chip, so that, that kind of has fallen, has made it less aesthetically pleasing in my eyes as well. But you guys already know the British Bulldog. This is, to me, my one and only British Bulldog. I don't think about Dynamite Kid. I didn't even know about Dynamite Kid as a kid growing up. Not until a few years ago when I started the actual LJN collecting, right? So, but the thing about this figure, if you take away the whole squished, pushed in head version of this figure, you think about the Series 4 Hasbro with the big, bushy hair and the braids. That is how I remember the British Bulldog. And that bushiness of the hair, that's, to me, I still covet this figure because of that bushiness. I still love the Hasbro, among all of the Hasbro style figures, I still love the Hasbro version of British Bulldog because of said bushiness. So the hairstyle, it really makes this figure pop. Now, he's got like this sort of Ted Arcidi type pose, and that kind of ruins it. You throw this pose on British Bulldog, you throw this pose on Kerry Von Erich, and you take relatively good figures and you kind of demolish it in that regard. I've said the paint's been chipping, and that's been, demolishing the aesthetics of it, but it's still overall good color. So that really helps. It's a generic championship belt, but I mean, you could look at this as like the 92 Intercontinental British Bulldog after defeating Bret Hart, which I think this is actually dedicated after. Or you could probably look at, hey, this is my first European 1997 era British Bulldog, but I think by that point he had very short hair. So, no, this is definitely, I think, 92 SummerSlam when he defeated, or was it Survivor Series? But I'm almost positive it was 92 SummerSlam when he won the Intercontinental Championship. So, very solid piece. Even though this one doesn't have that black line going down the side of the leg, I just think this one is very well painted. I mean, it does have, your occasional markings here or there, but it's got the beautiful jet black t-shirt. The blue of the pants are really solid. Now, I love the different variations of the different color schemes of figures I have, obviously. Now, you look at the main LJNs, you look at the purple and the pink, right? And then you look at, like, the red and gray figures that I have. And I love those because they look just like the posters, the actual LJN posters. And that's solid. Then you take, like, the blue pants, or the blue pants with the black stripe down the leg. Now it kind of gives you your mid-1980s Hart Foundation appearance. So, every Hart Foundation figure, whether it's Jim or Bret, they all kind of have a special meaning. So, you look at my new Hart Foundation figures that I have, where you're looking at like a Hasbro color scheme, Series 8 color scheme of Bret. They all mean something for a particular purpose. Jim Neidhart. Some of the downsides of this particular figure is whenever I kind of think about Jim Neidhart, he's always like this excessively chubby, for lack of a better term, character. So I look at this figure, I'm like, man, this guy is super thin. Why would they make him so thin? So when I look at like the Mike Stiers Jim Neidhart, where he utilized a junkyard dog, I'm like, great pose still. Great look the way he painted that up. And I think Junkyard Dog has the thickness to kind of replicate more of a Jim Neidhart look. So I think that figure really fits better. But love the play pose. Like I said, this is I don't know if I classify Jim Neidhart as a top 10 LJN anymore. I probably do. I don't know if I still keep him number 8. I might drop him to like number 9, number 10, but if he is still a top 10, I don't know if he's still number 8 in my opinion, but still a fantastic piece. Yes, the Bulldog means the world more to me. One of my all-time favorite wrestlers. His hair, his design, his color scheme. I just like the Jim Neidhart figure overall. This is a figure first tournament, and you know, your personal feelings and nostalgia and all that, it's gonna play a role. But as a figure first tournament, you got to go with the one that you appreciate the most. And the Jim Neidhart figures in general are going to win more matches than they lose. Essentially, it's a great customization, but Jim Neidhart is just a it's just an overall quality better figure. Next matchup, which is Macho Man against Hawk Red. So this is another Wrestlingwriter figure. Now we are starting to window down, and not a lot of Macho Man figures are remaining. I'm like, look, man, the Robert Jackson Macho Man, the one with the alternating arm, right? If that figure couldn't make it into round 3, I kind of look at a lot of these other Macho Man figures and I think to myself, what chance do some of these other figures have at making it into round 3? Some of the bonuses, like the Crown and Scepter, okay, let's say he makes it in round 3. Does he make it in round 4? Does he advance past round 4 when you really get into the meat of the tournament, which is round 5, when you really have the quintessential godlike figures of the collection? I think I put such a high preference on the Macho Man figures because of loyalty to the wrestler himself. Because I grew up watching and admiring Macho Man. Such a fantastic performer, someone that you rooted for on a consistent basis. And Slim Jim commercials and everything were just so much fun. So this is a wrestler of the 80s that I could actually remember. So that helps big time, right? For the last maybe close to 3 years or so, I've been saying that there were particular figures that Random Treasures has put out, and I've always stated that the Legion of Doom figures were essentially the cream of the crop of Random Treasure exclusives. Today, I don't know if I necessarily put their red Legion of Doom as their top figures, their cream of the crop anymore. I probably put their black versions above these, of course, because the spikes are absolutely amazing. But they got straight jet black pants, straight jet black shoes, right? But at least with the designs and the much better boots. So boots and pants are better on these figures, but the spikes, accessories are incredible. The pose of Animal on the Road Warrior AWA black version is better. So there are kind of toss-ups. They are kind of neck and neck between the two variations of the two Legion of Doom figures, the two Legion of Doom sets. So, yeah, I guess you really could say that either set could be their bread and butter of their collection, really. Hawk has the fighting pose where Animal has the design, the beautiful face paint. Hawk always has the more simpler of the face paint, right? So, but on top of play pose, look at the intricate details that goes into the physicality, the actual detail of the bones and the muscles when he struts that pose. It is absolutely insanely good. So this is a fantastic figure. I am always a play pose first guy. So right off the bat, Hawk has a huge upgrade. Color and design, I mean, either figure are pretty neck and neck. So there's not really one that's necessarily above the other in that regard. Macho Man, he might be right behind Hogan and Warrior among my all-time favorite wrestlers. Legion of Doom are my favorite tag team of all time. So, there's not really a preference as opposed to wrestler, right? So, for nostalgic reasons, guys I grew up watching, there's not really anyone that you could put over in that regard either. Macho Man with crown and scepter and robe to boot. I mean, those accessories really help. But are they really enough? You sit down, you want to wrestle one of guys, which one are you going to go to? Well, for starters, you're not going to use any of the customs. You're going to use an original figure, right? And if it's going to be Macho Man, I'm going to go with the one with the good pose, not one of the ones with the stupid arm positioning. Like, no, that's never going to happen. You're never going to go with this particular figure because they're both good. I have to go with Legion of Doom on this. I think this is a very solid 4th round figure. And if he can skirt on by into the 5th round, I think some amazing things could potentially happen. But I think this has to be, I don't want to say an easy selection, but this has to be the right one, the right call for me right now. Next matchup is featuring Koko B. Ware as he takes on Outback Jack. So 3 straight videos featuring a Koko B. Ware figure, 2 customs, and plus the original. Koko B. Ware, his customs, or if you look at his original figure, they're always extremely well done. The paint schemes, the colors, the details, they pop. They're done so well. I have never hated on the fact that he wears a jacket. His clothing accessories give him that added graphics. Incredible. Play pose. I mean, yeah, the way that the hands are bent back is stupid, sure. But realistically, if you're a kid or right now, you're still treating this like it's a legitimate punch, right? So you're still looking at it like a playable wrestling action figure. So you're not hating on the pose, not really. I still think Koko B. Ware is an excellent figure. Is it an elite figure? No. Is it a top-notch figure? I would say yes, it's a mid-tier figure, but I think I would say a top-of-the-line mid-tier. So like out of 70, 80 figures, if mid-tier is 26 to 50, then front-of-the-line mid-tier, I would probably put it somewhere in like the 30 range, 35, so somewhere near the top of the mid-tier range. Outback Jack, another one of those characters I never heard of until I started collecting LJNs. I think he made his first appearance in 1987, and in Series 4, 1987 release, so maybe he would have had to come out in 86, because to get a figure the same year that you made your first appearance, that's pretty fast. But again, I wasn't watching wrestling when I was 1 or 2 years old, so I'm speculating 86, 87. Let's say he came out in 87, and his figure was released, LJN's Series 4, 1987. I still say that his LJN figure, easily one of the single greatest LJN figures ever made. I think I rate this as the number 12 greatest LJN figure ever. So, yes, it's very similar to that of Jim Duggan, and I don't even know where I put Jim Duggan at. And kind of looking at like Jim Duggan and Roddy Piper when they squared off against each other in the first round, I always say that Roddy Piper was like one of the top 10 worst LJN figures. And I said Jim Duggan was probably in the top 20, maybe. and this was like number 12. But all three figures basically have the same pose. So how are the Jim Duggan and Outback Jack like top 20 figures, and Roddy Piper a bottom 10 figure? And I think it has to do with the fact that Roddy Piper, one thing, the way that his arm is just down a little bit lower, his one other arm is just up a little bit higher, and he's an extremely thin figure. So I think that has something to do with it. You look at Duggan, you look at Outback Jack, they're thicker figures, good grips, so that plays a huge role. I'm telling you, man, when you're looking at action figures, the grip of the figure, when I talk play pose, the grip of the figure is just as important as the pose itself. Because when you're holding the figure and it doesn't feel good in your hand, you're not going to enjoy it. Like Koko B. Ware, he feels like a relatively thin figure. So he doesn't have the best grip. You know what? A Series 1 Hulk Hogan is arguably one of the greatest action figures ever made, but he's also a very thin figure, and I would say probably not the best grip ever. So does grip always matter? Not 100% of the time, but it plays a huge role. Outback Jack, during the whole highlight right of Crocodile Dundee with Paul Hogan in the 1980s. I know Crocodile Dundee came out with like 2 movies, maybe 3. In all honesty, I haven't seen those movies in decades. I know I've seen every one of them, 2 of them, 3 of them, however many they came out with, but you would think that his gimmick would have worked based on that era. But I don't think his character lasted long, and I think he was only in there for like maybe a year or so, maybe less than that. Someone like Skinner, Steve Kern in the 90s, kind of same deal. I don't know if Steve Kern didn't, his Skinner character though, he wasn't from like Australia. I think he was from like the swamps of like Florida or something, so you're not quite the same as being from the outback of Australia or what have you. So, but I would say they're relatively similar personas to an extent, right? And even the look and appearances, maybe even the fighting skills, I don't know. I really don't remember either one. I don't remember. I definitely don't remember Outback Jack. Skinner, I really don't remember too much about him. I know I grew up watching him, so, but I don't really remember a lot about him though. Don't get me wrong, Koko B. Ware is an excellent figure. Any of his customs, his original, these are figures that deserve multiple rounds. Outback Jack, to me, in a tournament like this, my favorite figures, the best figures, they have to go as far in these tournaments as possible. And having matchups like Outback Jack against Ultimate Warrior type of deal, Hulk Hogan against Andre the Giant type of deal. Those are not matches you want to see in like round 1, round 2 type of deal, right? Because those, you're going to eliminate guys that you deserve to be in the 4th round, the 5th round, the semifinals in the 6th round, and the finals in the 7th round. So seeing them go in the 1st round, 2nd round, even the 3rd round is a waste. It's a waste of a run. So no doubt about it, this deserves to be a 3rd rounder, and I don't think that he's going to end his run there. I think he will be a 4th and possibly a 5th round figure, and with the right competition, is he a semifinalist? Absolutely. Like I said, one of my top 12 favorite figures, one of the most enjoyable pieces to work with, so I'm excited to see how far Outback Jack can make it in this tournament. The last matchup is going to be a very difficult one because from the Raider Nation, it's going to feature Honky Tonk Man as he goes up against Series 1 Andre the Giant from Mark Hackenberg. Let's start with Honky Tonk Man. So, in January 2022, I was probably about 2 or 3 weeks away from coming home for the last time ever. I was in Erbil, Iraq, and I had just purchased from the Raider Nation a mint on card Elias Mattel Retro. And that was probably one of the more expensive Mattel Retros I ever bought. It was like $52 or something like that. I mean, I didn't like paying that money for it. Not for a damn Mattel Retro. I'm like, darn, that's crazy expensive. But I was getting close to finishing off the collection, or maybe that was the last figure. I don't remember. But so I think Raider Nation had probably one of the more reasonable prices. So I finally pulled the gun on it. But also on the Raider Nation's site on eBay, they also had a couple of really amazing custom LJNs, which included the, I don't know if you can see it back here, but the red and, kind of like the red, yellow, and like light blue Coco Beware. And they also had this black and gold Honky Tonk Man. And I don't think I bought them together, but I think I pulled the trigger on these figures on probably back-to-back days. Like, they sent me an offer and I accepted. And I think I probably got them for like $60, $67, something like that. 63, 67. So they weren't expensive at all. Now, mind you, in 2022, Coco Beware and Honky Tonk Man original figures, pretty beat up condition. Those figures are probably going for $80, $90, $100, something like that. So to get beautiful mint figures, customized, gorgeous, for $70 roughly, amazing price. I thought so. And they were just a couple more amazing pieces to add to the collection. And ever since then, I had been really big on buying from the Raider Nation, and that's why I have so many of the Raider Nation collectibles, right? So, and this has always been my favorite Raider Nation figure. Honky Tonk Man obviously is one of those characters that I watched, and his Hasbro figure is one of my oldest known figures that I had as a kid. So it's an awesome piece, awesome look. I think, yeah, this stupid metal thing is kind of cutting into the paint. So now the blue undertone is starting to show. So I kind of screwed myself on that one. I really shouldn't be using these metal hooks on some of my customs, but it really is the only way you really can display a lot of these. Now, if we're simply going off of my favorite figure, or the figure that is the most playable, most enjoyable for usage, this is a hands down easy battle. Andre the Giant all day long. I keep saying that when it comes to Andre the Giant, I don't really separate the series 1, 2, or 6. Like, I don't say Andre the Giant Series 6 is the number 3 best figure. Series 2, the number 4 best figure. The Series 1, number 5 best figure. No. I just basically put them all in at number 3. And whenever I talk about the number 3 best figure, I never even talk about the Series 2 or 6. I always talk about Series 1. What? Because I think with Series 1, because both arms are extended a little bit further out. You know, their arms are like this, where Series 2 and 6 are kind of like this, right? So Series 1 is just a little bit more playable, I think. So I've always enjoyed the Series 1 more. And I've always said, if Series 3 or Series 1 is the third best LJN figure, it kind of makes these battles relatively obsolete, because you kind of have a general idea right from the get-go who's going to win that matchup. And Mark, his figures are pristine every time. You're never going to find paint loss. You're always going to have the most perfect, crisp lines. It's going to look like it actually came from the manufacturer, from actual LJN directly. Now, there is a Jakks Classic Superstars figure that I have of Andre the Giant just like this. And so ever since I got that figure, I'm like, you know what? I would love to get an Andre the Giant with that exact sort of similar look. And I don't know how much longer it took, but I would say relatively soon. One day I came across this same figure that Mark was selling. I'm like, heck yeah. And of course, I had to get it. Series 1, one of my favorite pieces. The design I absolutely wanted. It's such a simple piece, but it's flawless. It is done flawlessly. I could sit back here all day and say, you know what? If Andre wins this, I'm going to end up in being in the 4th round, 5th round, and having like nothing but Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant and possibly Big John Studd figures. I need to have a little bit of separation, start adding some different characters. Otherwise, it's going to be boring because I'm going to have the same characters over and over again. But that is stupid to look at it that way. It's a figure tournament, and I'm trying to choose my favorite figure. If that meant I had 20 LJN Andre the Giants in round 5 and nobody else, then I would have 20 Andre the Giants. And I would just have to pick from the 20 Andres to win the tournament. If this entire tournament, if I owned nothing but Andre the Giant figures, and I had 150 Andre the Giant figures on my shelves, and it was just about looking at Andre the Giant only, hey, that's just how the tournament rolls. This is such a tough freaking battle, man. You're going against a figure that I have coveted for so freaking long, and going against one of those figures that I desperately wanted, and like clockwork, it just miraculously popped up one day for me. That's got to mean something. I am going to go with Honky Tonk Man for this matchup. And I think there are a couple of reasons. Well, there are a few reasons why I'm deciding to go with Honky Tonk Man. Yeah, you could say, well, it gives you somebody different. Sure, eliminate that. Yes, color design. Got it. One of those things that I've talked about in the past is when you looked at the Andre Customs Series 2 that were repainted to look like the Blackstrap Series 6 Andre. I said that if any of those figures went up against original Black Singlet Andre, or even his original Series 2, those figures would probably lose, right? So when they went up against figures like, I don't know, Papa Shango or Ricky Steamboat, what have you, which Ricky Steamboat would never beat Andre the Giant. But I put them over because that Andre figure would never beat himself, essentially. I look at this figure, and then I look at another figure on my shelf right there that I know is in this round, and it's basically the exact same design. But there's something about that figure, and even though it's a Series 2, it's got basically the Series 1 head, kind of, you know. So there's something about that figure that I really enjoy. And I kind of feel like I might go with that figure over this one. And in all honesty, that's really the only reason. Any other reason is obsolete. So I think that's got to be the biggest thing. it does give another deserving figure the chance to move forward. I think every time I've done my tournaments in the past, I think Honky Tonk Man is usually like a round 5 figure, and it's hard for me to eliminate figures that I know that always do really well so early, which, I mean, it's happened. My Ultimate Warrior Hogan, semi-finalist the first time around, third round elimination the second time. So it happens all the time. So, but for this particular matchup, I think Honky Tonk Man has to be the right decision. Well, guys, as always, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch the video today. And until next time, thanks, everybody.